What's going on, fish? Welcome back to your favorite pond, the Coy Pond, episode 65.
Wow.
We have made it to Super Bowl week.
Woohoo!
Who would have thought? It's both the best time of the year and the worst time of the year because we've only got one more game left, but it's the biggest of them all.
Football's ending.
Football is ending. Don't worry, there's something every month for us to talk about because that's the NFL's geniusness and the whole thing.
Yes.
We will get into that. And, you'll see the draft, trade deadline, et cetera, free agency, whatever you want to call it. Don't forget, follow us on Twitter, Spotify, YouTube, Apple Podcast, Amazon Music, and, SpeakPipe. Don't forget about that. Send us a question, rant to us in the voice memo, however you want to do it. Well, if you submit it, I can guarantee you we'll play it. And we'll go from there. Appreciate everyone watching as per usual. Don't forget to subscribe, like, etc., etc. But here we are. Super Bowl week.
Ready to kick into it, aren't we?
Chiefs taking on the Eagles. I believe the Chiefs are favored by 1.5. Which
call it the rematch, right?
Yeah, a bit of a rematch.
Yeah.
Obviously, these teams played 2-3 years ago.
Yeah.
Something like that.
Since Philly's in there, we'll call it Rocky 2, right?
Yeah, seriously.
So.
And, the last time they matched up, it was a great high-scoring game. Pretty exciting Super Bowl, I believe. And
I think so.
Chiefs kicked their ass then. We'll see if they've got it in them now.
Yep.
Obviously, both sides of the football, everyone's kind of cleaned up their act since probably, you'd say, halfway through the season, early part of the season.
Both teams playing very well.
Yeah, swinging a hot bat, if you will, right now.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to kind of go over everything that involves the Super Bowl, give out the bets that I placed at least, make your own decisions and whatnot at the end of the video. But Super Bowl trends.
Yeah.
And we got to start off there. There's going to be Super Bowl trends you can take for any way you see this game going personally. There's trends for the underdog. There's trends for the favorite. There's trends for the over. There's trends for the under. To be quite frank, for every time you find one you like, you can find one that has the opposite.
Yeah.
Effect, yeah. It
justifies the other argument, right?
Justifies the other way. So that's something to keep in mind when you're placing Super Bowl bets based off trends. Almost everyone I know was on the 49ers last year.
Yeah.
Chiefs won. The Mahomes X factor is something to remember. Mm-hmm. We'll get into that here shortly. Some facts I kind of found that I thought were pretty cool. Over the past 23 years, underdogs own a 17-6 against the spread edge, including 13-4 against the spread in the last 17. Kind of crazy, but it makes sense. Going into the Super Bowl, it's supposed to be the two of the best teams in the league. Underdogs are going to get those points, and whether or not they win it or not, maybe they cover.
Right.
If it's 3.5. Obviously, this year it's 1.5. So basically, whoever wins is going to cover. Whoever doesn't win isn't going to cover unless it comes down to a point, which we've seen crazier endings to a Super Bowl.
Yep.
The team with a better record going into the Super Bowl game is 30-2 straight up all time, but has lost 12 of the last 14. Is on a 1-16 against the spread skid since 2004. Basically meaning that at the moment, you look at the Eagles and you go, well, the favorites haven't been doing well in the last 15 years. That is a pretty damning trend to look at and not be able to say, maybe you sprinkle a little bit on the plus 3.5, if anything. Now, I don't know what those odds would look like, but, do whatever you want.
Right.
In the last 5 matchups between the number 1 and number 2 seeds, the 2 seed owns a 4-1 straight up and 3-2 against the spread edge, which I found to be kind of crazy. I don't know exactly what matchups those were and or what was going on around the NFL at the time when that happened.
Right.
But, some fun trends to keep in mind.
Oh, yeah.
And now if you're looking at the over-under trends,
I always love the over-under.
That's fun, but here's what's making it more fun. In the past 55 Super Bowl games that have had totals, the results are perfectly split, 28 overs, 28 unders, and 1 push.
Really?
Under is on a current surge of a 5-1 in the last 6.
That's shocking.
Yeah. It feels like maybe the bright lights. The last 5 Super Bowl matchups, you have a bunch of Chiefs, you have the 49ers, you have the Eagles, obviously. I don't know if that goes back to Patriots-Falcons or not, but that would be the over, I guess, in the 5-1. But it's something to keep in mind. The under has been trending. So hypothetically, you would imagine the over is going to come back into play in the next majority of the next 6.
You would sure think so, right?
Because, it swings back and forth.
Out.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But I guess if right now it's split 28-28, that'd just be my guess. The last 20 years have seen an average posted total of 49.9 with a 47.7 points per game scored. 12 of the 20 games in that era went under. So, most of the time, the under hits a lot.
Yeah.
That's basically all that's saying. Of note, in the 12 past Super Bowls with totals in the 50s, under is 9-4. Totals in the 40s are on a 7-2 under run, with the total sitting at 48.5. This will obviously be in play. So, again, the bookmakers are bookmaking. They're finding those sweet edges that it just crisps everything.
Yeah.
Now, Super Bowl trends, obviously, you had the Patriots run as of the last big run, and now you're looking at the Chiefs going on their historic run, trying to three-peat. Pat Riley, don't flag the video since you own the three-peat, whatchamacallit, slogan.
Yeah.
But very interesting things. I don't know if you had any other trends to bring up necessarily about the Super Bowl in the last X amount of years.
Yeah, those are really interesting. Yeah.
If you look at the statistics between the Eagles and the Chiefs, overall the Eagles are going to own the Chiefs in almost every statistical category that there is that you can make a comparison between the regular season and between the regular season teams.
Yeah.
Obviously, Eagles ran into the Rams, which I think was probably their hardest team they've played so far in the postseason.
And it would have been really interesting if the weather hadn't played a part.
Or if Matthew Stafford didn't check out on that last drive and heave it into the fans, if you will.
Yeah.
But, Eagles then had to go up against the rookie quarterback in the championship game. Say what you want, that should have been a cakewalk.
Should have been a cakewalk.
But I guess we are supposed to be talking about the Chiefs. But Chiefs playing a hell of a game against the Bills, who I would argue are a much bigger force to be reckoned with overall. Clearly, Sean McDermott has some thinking to do in the postseason. And the Chiefs also beat the Texans, who maybe weren't world beaters, but they dominantly beat the shit out of the Chargers.
Yep.
Also not world beaters, obviously. But, it still sends a message when you pick off Justin Herbert 4 times. So, Chiefs doing what the Patriots used to do.
Yep.
Coming into the postseason, looking dominant.
Yep.
Bills game a little closer, but that was supposed to be closer.
Okay. Yeah,
that's how it's supposed to be. AFC Championship. And
everybody expected that.
Yeah, and now they're coming into the postseason. Indoor stadium, Superdome, Caesar Superdome, obviously. I didn't look at how Patrick Mahomes historically does in indoor games.
I haven't looked at that either.
I'll pop the stat up with his record. I'll go back through and look at that. But Chiefs, I think, face up well against the Eagles.
Yeah.
Andy Reid's a tricky son of a gun. What's his? Why can't I think of his name? Defensive coordinator for the Chiefs.
Oh, Spags?
Spagnuolo.
Yeah.
Spagnuolo obviously has been handling offenses for 4+ years now.
Yep.
I have to think the Chiefs have got stuff in their bag they have not done in months.
I would imagine you are completely right. And it's really interesting because the first Super Bowl, Hurts did pretty good. He had really good statistics against the Chiefs defense. So he threw for 304 yards and rushed for 70 more as the Eagles went up and down the field against Kansas City. But when the two teams faced off last season, it was different. Hurts was sacked 5 times, and the Eagles managed just 124 net passing yards.
Yep.
It was the 5th worst drop-back success rate he's ever produced in a single game.
Wow.
2 different games, 2 very different performances. Hurts played well in the first one, but the Eagles lost.
Mm-hmm.
Hurts struggled in the second one, but the Eagles won.
Wow.
So
key to victory.
Now we get to see what happens here, right?
Yeah, now that they've added Saquon to the mix,
Yep.
it adds that X factor that Hurts does not need to be
the guy.
The guy.
So, again, Spagnuolo is a master at creating confusion.
Yep.
And Jalen Hurts is very good when he plays against man-to-man defense.
Right.
Not so good when he plays against zone.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll see what they do.
Yeah, and of course you have to think back to last year when the Buccaneers beat the Eagles in the first round of the playoffs.
Right.
I believe it's Todd Bowles at the time pretty much brought the house against Jalen Hurts every single time.
Yes,
I think that was DeAndre Swift, so obviously a bunch of the load's not going to be relying on him necessarily.
Right.
But the Chiefs know what they have to do to beat Jalen Hurts.
Yes.
It's not really a mystery. Given now that you have Saquon, that does become a little bit of a blurred area because he has put up incredible numbers this year. Almost breaking the rushing record, I think, this season, in the regular season.
Yeah.
But clearly, they know how to take care of him.
Yep.
They know how to delete the passing game and leave it all up to Saquon. And if the Chiefs can score early, that's going to be a tough game for the Eagles to, have any control in, really.
It's interesting that, of course, Spagnuolo will have all these snaps. We talked about how he is against the blitz. Hurts. Right. The Eagles were a disaster against blitzes in 2023. It's the one area of the passing game that has improved with more, but it's still not perfect.
Yep.
Hurts ranked 16th against the blitz this season. The big issue when teams blitz him, sacks. When opponents have blitz, Hurts has taken a sack 13.2% of the time, the highest mark of any starter in the NFL against the blitz. And so, they're going to mix it up. They're going to give him zone coverages. Yep. They're going to give him blitzes.
Yeah, they're going to mix up every look. They're going to have every situation drawn out. Spagnuolo will, to know what the defense needs to do on any given situation.
Yep. And again, Hurts is much better against man.
Yeah.
So they're going to play a lot of zone coverages, 2 deep safeties, and he struggles mightily against the zone coverage.
Interesting.
That's when you see him hesitate, indecisive version of Hurts. He sometimes plays like he's terrified to make a mistake.
Oh, my God.
And he targets the middle of the field, the lowest rate of anyone in the league during blitzes.
Interesting.
Which is usually where
most people
quarterbacks throw it to the middle, right? Easy throws.
Yeah.
But he panics and throws outside for some reason.
Maybe not to get intercepted, thinking out of bounds is better than anything that might happen over the middle.
So it's really interesting.
It is.
And the one thing to note is when the Chiefs do play a zone against him, he always looks to Devontae Smith more than anybody else. And so keep an eye on that. If the Chiefs are playing a lot of zone,
might be
he's going to be throwing, it won't be A.J. Brown probably.
Yeah, that'd be a great time for the, whatchamacallit, my live bet Devontae Smith yards if that first drive doesn't amount to much for him.
Yeah.
His odds will drop a little bit on total amount.
Yep.
Nevertheless,
very interesting.
That kind of shows that going into this game, the Eagles are going to have to be top-notch on defense, which they have been this season. But you think back to that Eagles-Rams game, the Rams were pretty unsuccessful offensively throughout that entire game, given it was snowing, it was a crazy weather, but Stafford was having, to say the least, an off game.
Yeah.
He couldn't get any sort of connection with Puka. I remember Puka dropping quite a few. Now, if that was on Stafford, if that was on Puka, at what time? Who knows?
And again, we found out that Stafford was hurt.
Contributed
to that in the cold, probably.
Yep, but that was another game where the Rams kept blitzing Hurts. And they were only able to get anything going when Saquon got the ball.
Yeah.
And if they were up, I can't remember for the life of me, if they were up most of that game or if they were playing from behind. But if they were up that whole game, that makes sense why they were able to keep it. Obviously, they almost blew it at the end. But Saquon gives you the ability to burn clock time and keep the ball.
Yeah. And again, Kellen Moore was brought in there to improve the passing game, which he really hasn't done.
No.
They've kind of disguised it because of Saquon.
Right.
More run-pass option and different kinds of throws, but the overall passing game hasn't really gone to where they hoped it would.
No, and I don't think A.J. Brown's necessarily had an amazing second half of the season. And, Hurts has done better statistically.
Yeah.
But that's only because they figured out a way to give Saquon the offensive load while letting Hurts kind of just, complement him when needed by getting these quick passes out.
Yeah. One quick note that's kind of interesting, Spagnuolo broke into the NFL with the Eagles.
Oh.
And coached under legendary defensive coordinator Jim Johnson, who was a huge, well-known defensive coordinator for the Eagles for a long time. So he's a disciple of an Eagle, defensive coordinator legend, if you will.
Makes sense. So then there's even more of a personal connection there of why he probably wants to win.
Yeah.
Which is even more horrifying with what he does to the Chargers every year.
This is described this way. In last season's matchup between the Eagles and the Chiefs, Spagnuolo's deployment of what's called creepers.
Oh.
I'd never heard this before. Put the Eagles in a blender. A creeper is a non-traditional rusher like a defensive back or an off-ball linebacker who lines up in his normal spot before the snap but then rushes the quarterback. So they're kind of in a normal spot and the blitzes come from unexpected places.
Interesting.
And then your linemen drop into coverage, so you still have 4 linemen, but it creates the illusion that Moore's coming at him.
Yeah, I mean...
But the Eagles struggled like mightily against it. And again, probably going to do the same kind of shit again to him.
You would imagine, especially because how do I want to say it? Chris Jones. I mean, Chiefs defensively have had great corners this year. Their defenses look pretty damn good most of the time.
Yeah.
But then you think of Chris Jones. Okay, so that's two people that now have to worry about him. You know, the Eagles have a really good offensive line.
Yeah.
But when you have to double team one guy, that leaves someone else just unable to help.
Yeah.
And Goddard's a great blocker, no doubt about it.
Sure.
But there's only so much you can do. And that line, I think, was it Cam Jurgens maybe? Or Lane Johnson? Someone I thought was hurt on the O-line, which, you know, makes sense. Or adds to it, obviously, this in the postseason. But, I mean, they've been getting to Jalen Hurts.
Yeah.
It hasn't, you know, Verse on the Rams. You had someone on the Commanders. Like, they've been getting pressure on Jalen Hurts. And at that point, they're already up in the game. But I feel like if they're playing from behind, that game takes a drastic turn.
Yeah. You know, and the struggle that the Eagles will have in this game is, you know, you saw it on your first note here where you talk about defensive passing, for example.
Yeah.
You know, the Eagles' defense is great against deep passes, right?
Mm-hmm.
Chiefs don't do that.
No. Chiefs don't throw deep passes.
So the whole thing here that the Eagles are good at defensively is not what the Chiefs do offensively.
Right. I mean,
that's a problem.
You look at Patrick Mahomes versus the blitz. Chiefs are 5. Eagles defense was ranked 18th.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm confident that early on we might see some blitzes from the Eagles. I bet Patrick Mahomes is able to scramble.
Yeah.
And they've got so many wide receivers.
They do.
That have just shown up. And given this is the biggest moment, who knows who shows up and who doesn't. But I think we can all agree Travis Kelce, DeAndre Hopkins, Marquise Brown, or Hollywood Brown, and, you know, Juju Smith-Schuster, they've all been there and done that.
Oh, yeah.
Those are 4 veterans that, if anything, will just elevate the rookies around them. You know, you've got like Watson, Noah Gray, you got a couple other guys on the Chiefs offense that maybe haven't had those moments yet.
Yep.
But when you're surrounded by veterans that don't think of it as a big deal or are able to help you,
you're right.
They'll just elevate them.
And Xavier Worthy, maybe.
Oh, and Xavier Worthy, I just completely forgot about.
And he only got better once he got in the playoffs.
Yes.
His best game was the Bills game.
Yeah.
Probably.
Well, no, for sure. And you have to think about, you have to worry about if Travis Kelce has a 200-yard game.
Yeah.
You have to worry if Xavier Worthy combines for 200 yards rushing and receiving. And then you've got the rest of the receivers to worry about, not mentioning Kareem Hunt and Isaiah Pacheco.
Yeah.
I don't think the Eagles have met an offense with this much potential in the postseason.
And even though you got Jalen Carter, that defensive line for the Eagles is
Quinyon
really
Mitchell, Cooper DeJean, Blankenship, amazing corners.
Again, the line plays good, but the Chiefs running the ball is not what they do anyway. They're going to use the pass to set up key runs.
Yep.
They're going to run jet sweeps with Xavier Worthy. They're going to do all kinds of creative shit that traditional Eagles defensive line is going to be running like this, and then they'll hit them in the middle.
I completely
or
agree.
Off-tackle runs. That would be my hunch.
Yeah, and that's just how it's going to have to be. Now, if you're the Eagles offensively, because I think we've hit kind of Eagles defense, Chiefs offense, Chiefs defense a little bit.
Yeah.
If I had to give keys to the game anything here on Eagles offense, you need to get up early.
Yeah.
That, I think, is the only way the Eagles have maybe not a chance.
No,
I'm sounding a little bit too much like the Chiefs will win this comfortably, and they shouldn't. But the Eagles need to understand, if they get behind in this game, the idea that the Chiefs can freely blitz Jalen Hurts knowing they have to pass the ball at this point, and they can't abuse Saquon, I think this game takes a drastic turn in a different direction.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really interesting because, again, they're
But to the same extent, Saquon could break off an 80-yard run.
Yeah.
At any point in this game.
He certainly could,
I just I have to think Spagnuolo has just emphasized it over the top that their number one guy to watch is Saquon.
Yep.
Obviously, A.J. Brown's up there, Devontae Smith's up there, Dallas Goedert, who the Chiefs have given up the third most to tight ends this season, is up there. But the Eagles just need to stay in the game.
Yeah. The Eagles have run the ball on early downs at the second highest rate of any offense in the NFL. Again, a diverse rushing attack featuring zone runs, gap scheme runs, depending on the opponent and the game plan. So the thing about it is, again, Saquon Barkley could be the X factor. You're right. And while the Chiefs have a solid run defense, the key is going to be keeping him in check.
Yep.
And important to know that the Chiefs have the 5th best run defense in terms of limiting explosive runs.
That's going to be huge.
If they can do that, they'll take that out, and now it's on Hurts.
Yep.
If they can't do that, they're going to be in some trouble.
And history says the more Jalen Hurts is into a game, the better chance they have of losing. The same way that I think every game that Jake Elliott's missed a point after, they've won, but every game that he's made all of his kicks, they've lost or something like that.
Yep.
It's just crazy stats from the Eagles. It's such a weird team on paper.
It really is strange, you know. Couple other things to throw in here if I could.
Yeah, please.
In 132 career starts with Mahomes, the Chiefs have lost by more than 8 points a whopping 5 times.
Oh, my.
132 starts, they've only lost by more than 8 points 5 times.
That's insane.
They don't get blown out.
No.
That's insane. The last time the Eagles lost a game that Hurts was healthy for was Week 4 against the Bucs. That was September 29th.
Oh, my God.
How about that?
Good Lord. I mean, two incredible teams. Say what you want about the Super Bowl matchup. It should be a good game.
Yeah. Again, last time they played in the Super Bowl, Eagles defense didn't stand a chance against the Chiefs offense.
Right.
But now they have Fangio.
Yeah.
Who has changed things quite a bit. They had a hell of a draft, as we know.
Right.
So there's that. Fangio and Mahomes have a history. They've faced each other 8 times since 2019, by the way.
Yeah.
Chiefs are undefeated in those matchups.
That's what I thought. I thought I remember one of those stats. And to follow that setup, I believe there's been starting quarterbacks have rematched in the Super Bowl 4 times. 4 times. And the quarterback that won the first game always wins the second game.
Yep, Terry Bradshaw with the Cowboys, Joe Montana with the Niners.
There's got to be probably a Tom Brady one in there.
Oh, yeah.
And then
no
probably
doubt.
This is number 5 then, I guess.
That's probably right. That little stat on Fangio, it should be said in his defense's defense.
Yes.
That in Denver and Miami, they were not as good as the Eagles' offense. No. There's that, too.
Definitely put an asterisk by that for the Broncos, because he was there during the time where it was not happy times in Denver, and then the Dolphins' defense apparently mutilated, or whatever that, not mutilated, wrong fucking word, but they didn't like him and went above him to try and get him fired or get him out of there.
Yeah. You know, the Chiefs have moved Joe Tooney over to left tackle. So are they a little weak at left guard? We'll see.
Yeah.
You know, that again, there's that Eagles beefy defensive line with Jalen Carter and those guys. They are menaces, right?
And I really think we're going to see a lot more Patrick Mahomes scrambles early on to pull some defender back to try and keep an eye on him, not as a spy, but to keep him close, which will open up more downfield.
Yeah. And
create more situations where it's all of a sudden Travis Kelce's open 15 yards down for whatever reason.
And again, as we know, there's nothing quite like playoff Travis Kelce.
Oh my God, it's horrifying.
He's a nightmare.
It is incredible.
So
the old man just turns on the Jets, and he only has to do it for 3 to 4 games.
Yeah. So, let's see. Eagles, 2 more things on defense for them. One, they can play suffocating coverage, so we'll see how they can do.
Yep.
They are really good, to your point. Cooper DeJean, I forget the other guy.
Blankenship.
Yep, Blankenship and those guys. They're also very good at tackling.
Not letting people get free.
Yep. Next Gen Stats uses a metric called yards after catch over expectation.
Yakko-y.
Through tracking data, it measures how many yards a receiver should gain versus what they do gain. And the 2 best yards after the catch over expectation teams, the Chiefs and the Eagles, 1 and 2. Meaning they tackle.
Right.
So
they shut it down quick.
The big plays, if they're going to happen, they're going to be special teams probably.
Right.
Or a turnover, but tackling generally. And I'm curious to see for the Chiefs on that one, Saquon Barkley.
Yep. Well-coached teams. I mean,
the freak.
The Saquon Barkley. I mean, I think in my head, I'm thinking he either has 150 rushing yards or he gets 75.
He's going to get his yards, right?
It feels like that.
He's going to. 75 for a bad day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a fair point. But his numbers are so inflated with the season that he's had.
Yeah, you're right.
It's such a funny thing.
So, I don't know.
Should be very interesting. I'm trying to think, what have we not covered between the 2 teams yet?
Coaches. Let's chat just briefly if we could.
Well, obviously, which side do you want to start
Let's talk about Reed.
Reed came to the Kansas City after getting run out of town with the Eagles.
Yep.
There's got to be a little bit of a personal vendetta there. Same with Spagnuolo, apparently.
Yeah.
So 2 of the top 3 came from the Eagles, have had major success since then.
Yep. So with the Eagles, he had a 58.3 winning percent in 14 seasons.
Dang.
They made the Super Bowl once and never won it. In 12 seasons with the Chiefs, he's produced a 73% winning percentage, made the Super Bowl 4 times and won it 3 times.
Oh, my God.
Of course, he's now attempting, as we know, to do something that's never been done with a three-peat, just like Mahomes has. Wow. Talk about elite shit.
Not to mention the fact the only Super Bowl they lost to was Tom Brady.
Yeah.
Like, it almost doesn't get any better than that.
And again, he got dinged for game management when he was with the Eagles, and Mahomes has fixed that for him essentially.
Yep.
Because Mahomes is
he's quick with it.
You watch him every play almost. You'll see him with his left hand going like this to the sideline. And come on.
And Andy Reid has to love that because it's at least one thing he doesn't have to worry about is Mahomes will use the timeouts that he wants to use or when defense is in. That's a whole different situation.
This is kind of funny. The nightmare scenario for Eagle fans is that Reed comes up with some new creative wrinkle that the Chiefs unveil at the perfect time. The day after, Reed reveals that it was called something like the Chicken Finger Delight from the commercials and tells reporters he drew it up on a napkin that morning. But again, could very well be the case.
That freaking State Farm commercial, Fumble-rooski. If you
Fumble-rooski doo.
If I hear that they called a play that named that and they throw a touchdown, or it's a flea flicker to the big guy and then he throws it to Mahomes for a touchdown.
Roosty doosty doo.
Exactly. And it's like, was it the Philly special?
Yep.
I mean, so they got to do a play on that. Yeah. I mean, maybe a 2-pointer with
I bet we see something.
A big man catching a touchdown at like the goal line.
I bet we see it.
Pacheco, gets the ball, throws it into the end zone to whoever. It's this. But with Andy Reid, it always has some trickery.
Yeah.
And that's why, if I'm Eagles fans, I'm scared because there's a personal vendetta there.
There is.
Like, this game isn't just like another Super Bowl.
Yep.
It's a three-peat. It's, both coaches have done way better with the Chiefs than they ever did with the Eagles. And on top of it, it's Nick Sirianni, which is a great segue into what the Eagles have going on.
Yeah, exactly right. So, again, it was no secret that he came into coaching for his job this year.
Yeah.
And all he's done is responded and gone 14-3 and gone to the Super Bowl.
I get
for the second time.
I know. I've given him some shit, but honestly, who hasn't?
What's funny is the Eagles actually have a better winning percentage with Sirianni than they did with Reid. 59.9%.
Is Sirianni the most winningest football coach in Eagles history?
He's already the only coach in franchise history to get to the Super Bowl twice, and he's trying to join Doug Peterson as the only Eagles coach to win it.
That's right. I forgot Doug Peterson.
Reed's been there, and Dick Vermeil was there back in the 80s.
Jeez.
So how about that?
Crazy shit. And Vic Fangio obviously just trying to get his name cemented as a solid coach in the NFL. Yep. Based on what I've seen over the last 5 years up until now, thought he was a bit of a doofus.
Yeah.
He's got young guys.
Yeah.
They don't have yappy veterans except maybe Darius Slay, but you really haven't heard much from him this year, which is good.
And I think he is much better this year than he was last year.
Yes, and obviously the talent-wise, we talked about that earlier.
Gosh.
He has way more talent than he ever has.
Yeah. And Howie Roseman is the general manager. We'd be remiss not to make a statement about him. My goodness, please leave the Eagles and come to the Cowboys. we need you bad. That guy, the draft,
genius.
The free agency pickups.
Yep.
He just knows how to pick the right players for what fits what they're doing.
Yes.
And it really is a thing of art. Honest to goodness.
It has been. It really has.
The Saquon signing. The draft picks with Cooper DeJean and the cornerback. Good Lord. So
they've done. He's done a great job. Yeah. Hell of a job if you look at this team over the last 5 years when they kind of reset after Carson Wentz and Doug Peterson.
Yeah.
And here they are going to their second Super Bowl.
Yeah. Again, you look at it last year. That's pretty wild stuff. Look at last year to now. What a night and day situation in just 1 year.
It really is. It's impressive.
But and I do want to put a shout out to the Ringer for the information that I got here.
Yes.
Shao Kapadia, who put all this together. Great information, great data to share with you today.
Yes, amazing stats.
Yeah, love it. Tons of good stuff there.
Without a doubt. And, close it out, give our closing remarks, I've got some bets to go over with you people. You're welcome to tail me. You're welcome to fade me. I don't really care, but I'm letting you know what I will be betting on for the Super Bowl. A lot of these I got early. If you can't get them at this point, I apologize. Podcast comes out on Thursday mornings. Also, it might have been a little chaotic with how we did it today, but we're trying to hit everything at once, give you information you haven't heard 1,000 times, and, kind of keep it fun, because at the end of the day, no one wanted the Super Bowl in the first place. So, nevertheless,
there you go.
This one might surprise some people. P. Ryan, over 7.5 receiving yards. He had a pretty big catch. I think it was against the Bills.
Okay.
I'm expecting trickery. I'm betting on trickery. I'm just assuming they will be giving different looks to the Eagles' defense, which they know can rush the passer. And with the left guard situation, they will have to account for that.
Mm-hmm.
Bet one. Samaje P. Ryan over 7.5 receiving yards. That only takes one reception.
All right.
It's a low yardage. It doesn't take much, and you know what? Quite frankly, it'd be kind of funny to see him catch a ball and
hysterical.
Run it down. Mahomes over 5.5 rush attempts. Big fan of this one. I think he'll be scrambling early on more than we expect.
Yeah.
And assuming this isn't a blowout, that could do the trick.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure. Need to double check. I'm curious if kneeing the ball counts as a rush attempt.
If what?
If a quarterback kneels the ball,
does
that count as a rush attempt? Because in their yardage, it does count as a loss of 1 yard.
Good question.
So
it would seem like that would be a rushing attempt, though.
That's kind of my thought.
I would say so.
So just based off that alone, I will also take Patrick Mahomes over 5.5. That's low.
Is.
There's a low amount, especially if he just scrambles out of bounds.
Again, you see him very, very likely being an X factor. He's going to get some pressure. They're going to have good coverage downfield.
Just has to scramble.
They're going to get the ball out quick. Not Brady quick, but
right.
quick. And usually what he does is scrambles to buy the time.
And
I agree.
Without doubt, there'll be a couple points in this Super Bowl where his ankle has not been hurt yet, knock on wood, where he can scramble and get a rush attempt. Goddard over 46.5 receiving yards. The Chiefs have given up the third most yards to tight ends this season. This line has already moved to 50.5 yards, so I feel like I got in on it early like a genius.
Nice.
I'll still miss it somehow. But I think Jalen Hurts will be looking for safe throws. Dallas Goedert has had an amazing postseason so far.
Yes.
And tight ends are safe, typically. Safe spots to throw the ball. So
he's had multiple games this year where he's had like 3 balls for 80 yards, so I could see it easily happening again.
Exactly. And if he gets midfield a couple yards after, it only takes a few receptions. Xavier Worthy, over 5.5 rushing yards. I thought this was crazy how low it was. For the sole reason that he could lose 5 yards on one single rush.
There you go.
But with these jet sweeps, if he gets open, he's getting 7 yards. And then we just got to hope he doesn't take a loss.
Mm-hmm.
I really think that's an easy one.
I do too.
I could see that line moving quickly to 8.5, 9.5, because, again, dominant Eagles defensive line, but trickery. I'm betting on trickery on these bets.
I think you're right.
And then, as always, I took some veterans. Juju Smith-Schuster over 14.5 receiving yards. Hopkins over 60.5 receiving yards. And Kareem Hunt over 6.5 receiving yards. Kareem Hunt, a little bit of a gray area. I'm kind of expecting a quick dump off over the middle, potentially, for Patrick Mahomes early to kind of keep it fresh. Pacheco's been a little hurt, so he hasn't been in as much. You parlay all 3 of those together, plus 489. I was a big fan of this one for the sole fact that, we're probably either going to see one of 2 situations. Xavier Worthy and Travis Kelce, 100-yard games, no one else gets the ball. Or, if he's spreading the ball around, all 3 of those lines only take a catch, maybe 2.
Mm-hmm.
And given how this Super Bowl could go, trickery. So,
Agreed.
The trick or treat, if you will, bet slips, I actually have those placed. Those are legitimately my bets at the moment. I'll probably sprinkle in whoever I feel like last minute's going to win the game and bet on that. One other thing to talk about, there's a FanDuel boost right now. Kansas City to win and Mahomes 225 passing yards, or Philadelphia to win and Barkley 100 rushing yards.
Interesting.
Which one would you go with?
Oh, say the first one again.
Kansas City to win and Mahomes 225 passing yards.
I'd probably go with that one.
That's my hunch.
Yeah.
Barkley, I feel like, should get over 100.
Yeah.
Philly should win the game. But for whatever reason, I kind of believe if the Chiefs are going to win, Patrick Mahomes will have to have 225 passing yards.
Yeah, because they won't be running the ball. Mm-hmm. So, and again, destiny is in the Eagles' way here.
Exactly. So
that's big.
That's a FanDuel boost. If you're if you ever on FanDuel, that's maybe one to look at. Think about it. Bet responsibly, as always.
Making any pick for the game?
Pick for the game.
Score. Pick of the score.
If I had to go with a score, I would probably go with. How do I want to do this?
Curious.
I'm going to go 28-24 Kansas City.
Okay. I like that score. I would probably say 31-27 Kansas City.
31-27?
Yeah.
And we both have the 4-point margin.
Yep.
All right. You get to know.
Yep.
28-24.
It's going to be interesting.
I know. It's going to be a great game.
It's going to come down to one possession.
It is, and I'm hoping the refs don't get involved. That is my immediate nightmare situation, is that the refs get too involved, and it's a ticky-tack, out-of-bounds push that gives the Chiefs a first down when it should have been 4th and out.
Yeah.
And we'll be here, or Matt and I will be here next week, talking about how that was the worst Super Bowl ever.
Yep.
As long as it's not a Patriots-Rams repeat, where the final score was like 10-9, I'll be happy.
It's interesting. I was looking at a list of, from each team, a prediction. So they had a well-known reporter for each team.
A beat writer.
Yeah, beat writer for each one. I think it was like all the people that they had in there was like 41 for the Chiefs and 27 for the Eagles, something like that.
Wow.
Included some other NFL people, but the Chargers beat writer had it 32-22 Eagles. That was the biggest margin anybody had the Eagles winning by, was a Charger beat reporter.
Of course.
I thought that was funny.
Fed up with their shit. And it would also speak volumes if the Eagles win this game comfortably.
Yeah.
I mean, again, we talked a lot about the Eagles and the Chiefs and how the Chiefs should win.
Yeah.
I just feel like Patrick Mahomes is that X factor.
Yep.
It's just hard. You cannot not acknowledge that.
My good buddy Monty thinks the Eagles are going to blow it out. He's an Eagles fan. So we will see. I think destiny is a bitch.
Yes, and I don't know touchdown-wise what this game looks like in the slightest bit. It's going to be funky. I'm hoping for trickery, honestly. That's the only way I'm happy.
I think Andy Reid's going to pull out trickery.
I think so. I think Patrick Mahomes might catch a ball. Yep. I think the big fella might catch a touchdown.
Maybe a flea flicker.
Flea flicker would be kind of sweet.
Yep.
I mean, there's got to be something.
Yeah.
Any combination.
Yep. So.
But nevertheless, I think that's all we have for you guys this week.
It's awesome.
Enjoy the Super Bowl, drink responsibly, and as always, we will see you all next Thursday for our reactions to however the Super Bowl ended.
Enjoy the commercials, too.
Oh, yeah, of course. Enjoy the commercials. There should be some good ones this year. I think Pat McAfee's in one of them for the NFL, so that should be hilarious.
Yeah, Matt might talk about those next week. So.
Oh, yeah. We'll go over some football commercials as long as overreactions to the Super Bowl.
Sweet.
Everyone have a great weekend, and we'll talk to you next week. Peace.